Hi, Ian Roberts, and welcome to Mastering Composition. Last week I showed you an image and how I cropped it, various opportunities and possibilities, and then I flipped it, and you might have thought, ooh, that's unusual. I don't know, but I think I got it from when I used to use slides, and you just pick them up and realize, oh, it looks better like that. But the main point last week is the idea of how you're cropping and looking at an image before you begin to paint. How you're sort of creating a roadmap of where you want to go once you begin to paint. And you might say, but Ian, doesn't that kind of reduce our creativity, reduce our expression if you've got a map? You know, sort of plan things out so much? And the point is, the map is not the adventure. The map just gives you a direction of where you're going. The adventure starts when you pick up the brush, right? The hero, the journey begins when he finds the treasure map. That's not the end of the story, that's the beginning of the story. So there's a lot of room for a plan and a direction of how you want the painting to go. Because you know from experience, if you don't do some kind of planning, you can end up halfway through with no idea of where to go. So here was the sketch from last week and my plan. You remember my intention was to have us come in along this line of light over to these darks, and then to have enough contrast in terms of intensity of hue, of color, to bring us over there. So this week I didn't block it in. I was just painting shape by shape, pretty much trying to get it right as I went. And there's no palette this week. I'm just staying on the brushwork. You know, with 8 or 10 minutes of time, it's just like I just thought I'd focus this week more on the brushwork. But you know, other weeks I'll do the palette and the brushwork and the palette and the brushwork. So I hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you at the end. So you can see I've already put in the background, but they're quite simple shapes. And the color of that water is off, I can tell you. It doesn't look like the Caribbean in my painting. But I didn't shift to the palette, you know, in trying to keep it to a fairly, 7-8 minute video. I realized in going back and forth to the palette, you get less material to look at in terms of the painting quality, or you can see the mixing. So this week I decided I'm just going to focus more on the actual brushwork, and I'm mixing. You can see the variety of greens, you know, some really quite yellow, some sort of cooler, some a little bit more intense. Then over here, you know, obviously it's not green at all. It's sort of a rust color in the late fall kind of. But I just wanted to sort of show the blocking in process, step by step, of just shape by shape, getting each shape right. Now into the foreground, or into the plane of grasses in the foreground, and then a more orange, you know, a little bit of orange mixed with that green, just to sort of give it a shift. Because a lot of this stuff, when you've got big areas like this, is just finding shifts of value, of intensity, of hue, so that you create interest. You'll see in the whole foreground where there's all these flowers in the foreground, and I've got to create a lot of variety there without it getting hopefully too busy. But you can see the different varieties of orange to yellow to green in order to give that sense of variety of grasses and flowers. And so I'm just kind of putting in all the lights, and then here I'm getting in the first of the shadows. And I'm just thinking of sort of those big shapes, making sure that it's the right value to make sure that the sunlit ones will pop out. And it's all sort of done in reverse in a way, in the sense that the shape of the tree is created in reverse because of the, a little bit like watercolor, like pushing the darks into it. And you'll notice there's a lot of, you see how I go up, those sort of marks that go up? It's because the trees are all growing kind of vertically. I'm not painting branches and leaves, but they are tending to move up. All the different branches are kind of moving up. So that up motion, if I were doing houses, I probably wouldn't do it. But when you're doing trees like that, and here I'm just scraping those birch trunks, I guess they are in there. Just scraping it back to the canvas. But that vertical motion is just sort of, obviously in a long... See, here's an interesting thing, that if you're drawing this, you might have these long shapes, horizontal shapes, to sort of give the sense, particularly in the distance, of the flat plane. And so back there, the lines are quite simple and horizontal. And as they come forward, they get more complexity, which accounts for all the complexity of all these things in the distance. But you can see I'm just putting it very smooth and flat at the back because it's way back there, right? And here we're sort of in the, well, now we're starting to break it up again some more. But you're going to see the whole foreground area is all in shadow with just that one shaft of light coming through the plants. So I've got to put a lot of different variety and colors in here to sort of build the foundation so that that shaft of sunlight will make some sense. Here now I'm just trying to define the actual edge of that. Again, pretty smooth horizontal along the edge. And as we come into the foreground, it sort of breaks up a little bit more. But this is, I'm not sure they're Queen's Anne lace or not, but they see the flowers themselves seem a little small for Queen's Anne lace, but they have that's the shadowed side of the white flowers. And then you'll see eventually I'll just get to the lit side. But I kind of have to have all the shadow shapes working and kind of in place before being able to sort of think about what the lights are going to be and the variety of but again, you see very horizontal, the line back there, and not a ton of vertical motion. Some tall grasses that occasionally catch. So here I'm just starting to put in the lit. I'll call them Queen's Anne lace. But I have to keep building up the shadow shapes and, get some sunlit greens in there because it's not just hitting the flowers, and some shadowed greens. And then, of course, there's some real darks down in there as well. And I sort of exaggerated mine more than the photograph, but now I'm starting to sort of draw all those darks in there because I need the darks in order for the tops of even the shadowed flowers to work. And I'm just working shape by shape, and I adjust it, and you'll see the finished painting at the end. By the time I've finished videoing, there's maybe another, 20 minutes of fiddling just to sort of orchestrate things. But it's really just sort of thinking about the lit side, the dark side, and continuing to fill in those spaces to create the complexity of all those flowers in the foreground. And then you can see as it moves back to the middle of the field and to the back of the field, it gets simpler and there's less and less stuff that catches our attention. It starts to get more horizontal. Someone asked me, do I paint horizontally when I'm, just like I would when I'm drawing? And in many respects, if you look at the drawing, down here in the foreground, it's all vertical marks. And if you look back a little further, they're all horizontal marks. And so now I'm just sort of getting the last of those flowers in. And, it's starting to kind of come together. You see the color will be different in the final painting just because just because it is. I'm not quite sure why the video comes across so different. But that just sort of gives you a sense of how I block it in. And then here's the finished painting. And, there's a bit of glare on the right-hand side, I suppose. and it comes across as a little different. But you can see that motion of the long sunlit patch of flowers in the foreground take us back to the shadowed side, and then the colors of the water and those sort of oranges take us back over to the right-hand side, pretty much as I had intended originally. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please do like it. Subscribe if you're not already subscribing. You can get this in your inbox on Tuesday mornings if you like. I hope you have a great week, a creative, engaging week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.